All right, so something popped up that I wanted to talk about that came up after a conversation I had with a friend of mine who was in the adult industry. And I do want to say that she's a good friend of mine, but honestly, she's been aloof and wanting to keep space between us, which I do respect. And part of that is just because of what she did or where she was at or whatever. She just wants there to be distance, and I respectfully agreed with that and just kind of left things be. But I would still check in just to see how she's doing from time to time, just because from what I understand, it's a very harsh environment, very frustrating to be a part of that and to go through it all and all of it. It doesn't really matter what part you're in. If you are participating, it's apparently extremely damaging. Now, the longer you go, the more damage and trauma you accrue, and as you know, that will affect your life. A lot worse than what you would think the longer you go. Now, all in all, the conversation itself was pretty good, but what happened afterwards was actually what got me interested. And that was basically about being androgynous. Looking like you're a guy, looking like you're a girl, or just being mistaken for, one or the other. Doesn't really matter. Now, I want to say that it is a bit convoluted, but I will try to break it down. The church wants you to pick a side, wants you to pick, who you are. Like, if you want to break it down biologically, you are a man, you are a woman, and that you should just stick with it. Now, for some, they actually just say you are your biological sex, and to a point, it is accurate because babies come from men and women being together, not from anything else. And if you transition from one sex to the other, you essentially, if I understand this correctly, you become a failed version of that sex that you're transitioning into because your sexual organs are mutilated to the point where they are non-functioning or outright removed. It really depends upon the complications that are involved and the other issues that present itself with the surgery for transitioning. Now, that's also not including any medication or HRT treatments or anything when taking prior to all of this, and during and then afterwards. I do not know much about the aftercare, and I would have to say others, like Blair White, have much more information to bring up when talking about subjects like these. But overall, I kind of realized that if you like a certain sex, that you have to stick with it. And then I started making connections as far as where the church is involved in all that. And in all honesty, a lot of things started making sense. So things are the way they are, and if they're not, you have to make them be that way, or it will be made for you. And the church has done a very bad job with with presenting rather than forcing, their views, their values, their their mission, their what they're focusing on, their goals. Now, there's another topic I'll be addressing later on as far as scripture versus their mission and what they're looking at currently, just because they can drift away from their values and beliefs when they're focusing on a specific goal or task in mind, like missionary work, going overseas and witnessing to this other country over there. So that's a different topic. But in short, I'm probably just going to call this one androgynous. And it hit me the fact that, well, I like what is feminine and I like what is beautiful. And it's regardless of sex or gender. I can appreciate things and people for who they are and not necessarily for anything else. I want to say it took me roughly like 4 or 5 years to understand that, and it troubled me to no end trying to figure this stuff out myself. And other people, it will take them longer. It's going to take you a while as you figure out where you stand on all of this and where faith and your beliefs will fall into place. I do actually agree with the church on this one part, and the fact that you should find out where you are at so that you can not be confused and so that you can further develop yourself. Further developing yourself is incredibly important so you can get around whatever's in your life, you can process, you can work through, and in short, not let anything stop you from, or get in your way from your goals or from being confused and not knowing where to go on from here. Androgynous itself is of an interesting nature in the fact that you just can fit in one side or the other, and the church doesn't like that. The church wants you to have a defined role, a defined purpose, and in many cases, many in there will encourage you to look and pray and to try to find your place. And these are all good. They're all good to a point. If you don't value yourself, if you let things stay in your life that are damaging, that are harmful, including negative defense mechanisms, faulty defense mechanisms, then you're going to stay stuck for quite some time. Or rather, even if you don't stay stuck, you won't find success because they're still there. Now, that's mostly about it. There's only a couple other thoughts here and there, and they're not exactly relevant. They're more personal. All in all, people chase after what they like, and they build up what they like in their own life, whether it's, helpful or not. I think this is why the church is needed, because it helps make others realize, the moral ground is very tricky, and having a solid foundation to build off of anything is important. And the fact alone that it took me like 4 or 5 years to understand where I stood with, what I liked on a personal level does kind of prove that. I have a solid foundation, but for me, it got cut in half and I had to rebuild it. That is another topic that I don't know if I will be addressing directly. It's important, though, because many people can understand the fact that, hey, I grew up in this environment, things happened, I changed, but not completely. Because the process itself looks different for everyone else on the outside. And the fact is, those who are androgynous, it can actually be more than just that. It can be a lifestyle. It can be permanent. It can be... It could be a part of who you are, in a sense. Now, I want to say it's a combination of more than just simply looks and genetics. It is also a bit of a lifestyle. I know I just mentioned that, but think of everything that goes into it. Like, you have to maintain your looks and so much more. All right, until next time. Just had to share this interesting thought with you, and hopefully it gets you thinking something.